Hi, Alannah. I love you. I love you. This is your big brother, David. And I have another Christmas story for you for the holiday season. This one's called A Christmas Carol. And it's about this guy. It's a guy named Scrooge. You may have heard of this. Here we go. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. See, look, we're in a town. There's a building. There's families. There's people. And they're all going about their business. Holiday season, getting gifts. Here. See this surly old man? Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year on Christmas, old Scrooge was at work in his counting house when his nephew Fred came in. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle!" See, this is Fred. This is Scrooge. Scrooge is, Fred. "Merry Christmas!" "Bah," said Scrooge. "Humbug! Bah, humbug!" He was scraping the old sinner. Scrooge was hard and sharp as flint. "If I could work my will," he continued, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips will be boiled and buried with a stake of holly." Oh, what a mean old man. "Uncle," pleaded Fred, "you don't mean that. Come dine with us tomorrow." "Humbug," said Scrooge, and he waved his nephew out the door. "Go away." At the day's end, Scrooge's clerk, Bob Cratchit, snuffed the candle out and put his hat to go. "Y'all want the day off tomorrow, I suppose," Scrooge grumbled. Christmas, a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Scrooge walked out after him with a growl. "Oh, you shouldn't even have Christmas off." Scrooge, here's old Scrooge. Old man Scrooge. Here, let's go. Let's flip sides. When Scrooge arrived home, however, something strange happened. As he put his key in the lock, he saw the knocker. Not a knocker, but the face of his dead partner, Jacob Marley. So he had a partner, apparently, in his business who died. "Humbug," says Scrooge. All at once it was a knocker again. Quite satisfied, he closed the door and locked himself in. Scrooge had dressed for bed and settled in for the fire when he was startled by a clanking noise. Clank, 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 as if someone were dragging a heavy chain in the cellar. Then he heard the noise much louder, clank, 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 on the floors below. Then coming up the stairs, clank, clank, clank. Then coming closer still, a figure came through the heavy door. "Who are you?" trembled Scrooge. Here's Scrooge, sitting in his armchair. There's some chains. What's going on? "Ask me who I was. Who were you then? In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley." "Humbug, I tell you, humbug." See, look. There's Scrooge in this chair right here. He's sitting next to his fire. And there's his dead partner, Marley. All these chains. See all these chains on? And the spirit raised a frightful cry. "Hear me," bellowed the ghost. "I wear the chains of greed I forged in life. I am here to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted tonight by 3 spirits." Look at that, Lon. That looks really scary. I would be really scared if that happened to me. "I think I'd rather not," said Scrooge. Scrooge doesn't want to see those spirits. "Without their visits," said the ghost, "you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first when the bell tolls 1. That's really late. was really late at night. The ghost floated up out of the bleak, dark night. Scrooge certainly could not sleep now. He had no choice but to wait upon the tolling of the hour. Ding! Dong! "A quarter past," said Scrooge, counting. "Ding! Dong! Half past," said Scrooge. "Ding! Dong! A quarter to it. Ding! Dong! The hour itself," said Scrooge. The bell sounded with a deep, dull, hollow melancholy one. One hit. One. Light flashed up in the room, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, you see, by a hand. So here we have Scrooge. He's sleeping in his bed, and there's a hand, if you can see it right there, drawing the curtains. "Who and what are you?" Scrooge demanded. "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" inquired Scrooge. "No, your past." It clasped him gently. "Rise and walk with me." Scrooge was helpless as together they passed through the wall. Look at this. This is a pretty little illustration. The ghost of Christmas past pulling aside the curtain, taking Scrooge. See, they're lifting out their hand. "Come with me, Scrooge. I'm here to show you the past." They were in the busy thoroughfare. Look at this. Look, see, there's a party. Look at that party. And then there's Scrooge right here. Right here. He's all alone. Everyone's dancing. Yip, 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 yip. But Scrooge, he's bah humbug. Bah humbug. They were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. Was I apprenticed here?" marveled Scrooge. They went in. A sight of an old gentleman. Scrooge cried, "Well, that's old Fezziwig, alive again." Fezziwig called out in a rich voice, "You ho there, Eisenberg." Scrooge's former self, now grown a young man, came briskly in. "No more work tonight," said Fezziwig. "It's Christmas Eve. Yay, yay, dance, 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 pew, pew, pew." In no time, the warehouse was converted into a bright ballroom, as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. Guests arrived, and among them a fair young girl who took the hand of the young Ebenezer Scrooge. There were dances, there was cake, and there was a great piece of cold roast. Scrooge's heart and soul were in all of this. He remembered everything and enjoyed everything. When the cheerful voices died away, he was sad. Sad Scrooge, bah humbug, sad. He was sad to see them go. Mostly hers. See, there's little Scrooge. See, this is the little Scrooge. And there's this lady. And they're dancing, and then there's old man Scrooge. Scrooge's heart and soul. Scrooge hung his head, conscious of being exhausted, and further of being in his own bedroom. The ghost had vanished. Scrooge barely had time to fall into his bed before he sank into a deep sleep as heavy as his heart. He's sad. He's sleeping. Uh-oh. Awakening. In the middle of a snore. Look at this illustration. Here's Scrooge. Grumpy old Scrooge. And who is this? Bum, 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 bum. Look at this big guy. Awakening in the middle of a snore. Scrooge did not need to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of the hour. A strange voice called his name. "Know me better, man," exclaimed the ghost. I am the ghost of Christmas present. You have never seen the like of me before. Never, Scrooge made an answer. Touch my robe. Scrooge did as he was told and held fast. See, the ghost of Christmas present has a big beard and a big green robe, and there's Scrooge grabbing his robe. See, look at this. This is a nice little scene. There's a little boy, there's a table, there's parents, it's a family. They stood in the city streets on Christmas morning. People who were shoveling away on the housetops were full of glee, calling out to one another and exchanging snowballs. The ghost led Scrooge straight to his clerk Bob Cratchit's house. That's the guy that works for Scrooge, Bob Cratchit. There was nothing of a high mark on the Cratchits' Christmas dinner. They were a poor family, and Tiny Tim could not walk without his crutch. But they were happy, grateful, and pleased with one another, and content with the time. Bob Cratchit said he didn't believe there was such a tender goose as the one his wife had cooked, and then his voice trembled when he said that Tiny Tim was growing strong and hardy. It's his boy, Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim has a hard time with his legs. He has leg braces, and he has a crutch to help him walk. Then Bob proposed a Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us. God bless every one of us, said Tiny Tim, the last of all. Spirit, said Scrooge, tell me if Tiny Tim will live. I see an empty seat, replied the ghost, and a crutch without an owner. No, no, said Scrooge. Oh no, kind spirit, say he will be he will be spared. But the ghost did not respond. All right. It was a great surprise to hear a hearty laugh that moment. It was an even greater surprise for Scrooge to recognize it as his nephew's and to find himself in his living room. Look, see, this is Scrooge's family. They're all gathered round. He said that Christmas was a humbug, cried Scrooge's nephew. He's a funny old fellow. I'm sure that he's very rich, hinted Scrooge's niece. What of that, my dear, said Scrooge's nephew. His wealth is of no use to him. He doesn't do any good with it. He doesn't make himself comfortable with it. He hasn't the satisfaction of thinking, that he is ever going to give any of it away. Scrooge cast his eyes upon the ground, and he raised them speedily upon hearing what his nephew spoke next. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to the old man, wherever he is. He wouldn't take it from me, but he may have it nevertheless. Uncle Scrooge. Look, they're drinking, and they're giving a toast to Old Man Scrooge. Uncle Scrooge, they cried, and a Merry Christmas to you, my darling, Scrooge responded gratefully, forgetting that his voice made no sound to their ears. Soon they began playing games, for it is good for children sometimes, and never better at Christmas. Scrooge begged like a boy to be allowed to stay. 1/2 hour, spirit, only one. But the ghost was gone. The chimes were ringing. Scrooge remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley and beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him. Ooh, this is scary. There's Scrooge, and look at this. Look at this scary, scary figure. I am the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come, said Scrooge. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with its hand. Although he was used to ghostly company by this time, Scrooge feared the silent shape, and he found that he could barely stand to follow it. Will you not speak to me? It gave him no reply. That's a pretty scary spirit, if I do say so myself, Alannah. The city seemed to spring up around them. The specter gestured to a knot of businessmen. I don't know much about it, said the fat man with the monstrous chin. I only know he's dead. It's very likely to be a cheap funeral, for upon my life I don't know of anyone to go to it, said another. Scrooge did not know what to make of this conversation. It could not be about the death of Jacob, his old partner, for that was the past, and this ghost province was the future. The specter led Scrooge into a low-down shop where a woman was untying a heavy bundle. Bed curtain, said the shopkeeper. You don't mean to say you took him down, rings and all, with him laying there dead? Yes, I do, said the woman. If he wanted to keep him after he's dead, he'd have somebody looking after him, instead of gasping out his last stand there all alone by himself. Some lady took his curtains. That's rude. Scrooge shuddered from head to foot. The scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bare bed on which, beneath a ragged sheet, there lay unwatched, unwept, uncared for, the body of this man. Let us leave this fearful place, cried Scrooge. Spectre, said Scrooge after they gone, tell me, that man whom we saw laying dead. The phantom led him amongst the graves of a churchyard and pointed to one. Look, there's a specter, it's dark, and right here is a grave. Answer me one question first, said Scrooge. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they the shadows of what might be only? Still the ghost pointed, as immovable as ever. Scrooge crept forward, trembling as he went, and read upon the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. Am I that man who lay upon the bed? He cried. No, spirit, oh no, no. I am not the man I was. I will honor Christmas in my heart and keep it all the year. I will live in the past, present, and the future. The spirit of all three shall live within me. Oh, tell me I may wipe away the writing on this stone. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reverse, Scrooge saw a change in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Oh, look at this! It was Happy Scrooge. But remember the very beginning? We had a grumpy Scrooge. But look at this. Happy Scrooge. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, time before him was his own, to make amends in. Scrooge opened up his window. What's today? He called down to the boy on the street. Why, Christmas Day, replied the boy. I haven't missed it, said Scrooge to himself. My fine fellow, do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up in the next street? What? The one as big as me? Returned the boy. Go and buy it. I'll give you a shilling. Come back in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. The boy took off like a shot. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's, whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. He shan't know who sent it. It was twice the size of Tiny Tim. Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid ha-ha-ha. Look at Scrooge. See, he's smiling. Even his eyes are happy. Look at him. After sending off the turkey, Scrooge dressed himself in all his best and sent out for his nephew's house. It's a mercy his nephew didn't shake his arm off when he arrived. Scrooge felt home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. Wonderful party, wonderful games, and wonderful happiness. Scrooge was early at his office next morning. Hello, he pretended to growl when Bob Cratchit arrived a few minutes late. What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob. "It shall not be repeated." "I'm not going to stand this sort of thing, and therefore," Scrooge said, leaning in from his stool, "a Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary," he continued, with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, "and do what I can to assist your struggling family." Oh boy, look at this! Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, there was a second father. He became as good as a friend, a good master, and a good man, as good as the old city knew. And it is always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas as well as anyone alive. Many that truly said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. Aw, look at this. That's the last story I have for you, Alannah. I love you, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Goodbye, much love from your big brother.